For those of you that have been keeping in close touch with UFC news, it's clear that Dustin Poirier and Nate Diaz have had a long-running rivalry. While it's not uncommon to have rivalries in the UFC, it seems that his beef with Nate Diaz is growing stronger as the two have decided to have a short-notice fight with each other in the UFC octagon. Stay tuned for more as we get started with the video. The start of the beef. Dustin Poirier decided to recently address his long-running rivalry with his fellow UFC fighter, Nate Diaz. While trash talk's common in the UFC, it's still uncommon for trash talk to get to the point where it becomes a rivalry that stretches beyond the fights and into years of beef. Unfortunately, that's exactly what happened with the situation surrounding Dustin Poirier and Nate Diaz, and it's certainly turning into a hot potato of a situation. The Louisiana native is pretty hungry to have Nate Diaz on the chopping board at some time down the line, and Nate Diaz is aiming to take on the Louisiana-based fighter. Dustin's remarks. Dustin Poirier came forward in an interview with the reporter Ariel Helwani during the MMA Hour, and he finally addressed the trash talk and comments made by Nate Diaz during the UFC 264 fight week. He stated that he'll never back down from the challenge presented by Nate Diaz and is willing to settle down for negotiations with the UFC brass to make a fight between them possible in the near future. Dustin chuckled and called him Old Nathaniel. He said that Nate said something during fight week, and he stated that a lot of people said something about Dustin Poirier, calling him out for it. He tried to clear up the situation by stating that both of them are fighters and he wasn't trying to set up a round robin between him, Nate, and Conor McGregor at the time. The UFC event that got canceled in 2018. Although the beef has been long and both fighters decided to schedule a fight between themselves for UFC 230 as the co-main event, Dustin came out and cleared the air of what went down as their bout was canceled. Diaz had his own version of why the bout was canceled, that Dustin was a coward and couldn't take on the great Nate Diaz, but Dustin said that he was primed and ready to take on Nate Diaz on November 3rd, 2018 at Madison Square Garden, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, the fight had to be canceled, but he's still readier than ever to take out Nate Diaz the moment they step into it. He stated, Nate Diaz and I were supposed to slug it out in the octagon, and we're going to have a fair and decent fight, but Nate Diaz won't tell the real story of how the fight fell apart. Dustin said he pulled out of the fight not because of some problems of cowardice, but because the fight was already a failure and wasn't going to be scheduled. With that, he decided that at that point, the fight was already off of the table. Dustin still has a fiery resolve and vigor, and he states that he wants to face off against Nate face-to-face in the octagon someday. It's inevitable that both of them will fight. They just have to patiently wait and see to it. Dustin said that he would be ready to pummel Nate Diaz at any weight, while Nate Diaz is counting a 2-0 against Dustin, saying that he's been scared of fighting Nate Diaz. It's been revealed that Nate Diaz was trying to renegotiate the situation, and at that point, the UFC decided that it was best that Dustin is given other opponents as he was the #1 contender at the time. He said that he was also dealing with a lot of hip problems and had been preparing for the Diaz fights and didn't want to fight anyone else. It was either fighting Nate Diaz or blowing his hip out. He decided it was better to get his hip fixed at the end of the day. Nate Diaz and Poirier's beef about to be squashed. It seems to us that Dustin Poirier has finally agreed to terms and conditions for the matchup with Nate Diaz, and finally the matchup will come to fruition. Nate and Poirier have been poking fun at each other's expense for the past year or so, but the fight never happened, which was supposed to happen back in November 2018. Dana White's all hands on deck as he told the world in December of 2021 that he's willing to let the grudge match come into order as both athletes want it, and because there's a heck of a lot of demand from the fans as well. It seems Poirier is definitely willing to make the fight happen as he wants to fight within the next 6 weeks. Now it all comes down to the fact that Nate Diaz wants to accept the fight, or maybe he doesn't. Poirier's statements. Poirier stated that no contract had been signed as of yet, but if UFC goes through this and gets the paperwork done, he's going to sign it without any second thoughts. He stated that the fight's going to be super short notice, but he's mentally prepared himself for it. He stated that he had been regularly talking to his wife and his coach, Mike Brown, and they support him and are all behind him for taking up the awaited battle. He said that he looked himself in the mirror for a long while, asking himself if he really wanted this fight, and he said that he felt good about it. So he's willing to get into the octagon to fight Nate Diaz to figure out who would come out victorious once and for all. Poirier recently lost a lightweight title fight to Charles Oliveira at UFC 269, which took place on the 11th of December. He was concerned about what type of fight he'll get, but then rethought that he wanted to fight Nate Diaz. Poirier didn't tell or reveal any plans made by the UFC for the upcoming bout with Nate, as it's a fight between the organization's biggest stars. Poirier said that he's ready to move on to the welterweight class and get ready to hit the bag and the gym to prepare for the fight against Nate. Poirier also mentioned that, of course, it's Nate Diaz we're talking about, and he's not going to talk about what card or what date they're going to fight on, but he's a fan of Nate as well, and the crowd loves him. Nate Diaz had some uninteresting and uninspiring words to say. He said that the UFC doesn't seem at all interested in arranging the fight because Poirier sucks when it comes to making a title match happen. If it all comes down to the fight finally happening, we could be seeing the final fight of Nate Diaz's Diaz's current UFC contract as a fan favorite had seen 2 back-to-back losses against Leon Edward and Jorge Masvidal. UFC pulls the plug on the Diaz-Poirier fight. It seems as if the fight between Dustin Poirier and Nate Diaz will have to wait a bit longer if it will ever happen, as the UFC's president Dana White has decided to pull the plug on the event altogether. The UFC was initially interested in booking the fight and making the fight happen at an upcoming card in the earliest of 2022, but despite all the preliminary talks that had been going on, multiple people within the UFC told the world that this fight will not be happening for now. Diaz versus Poirier was explored as an upcoming card for one of the fights that could have happened in January or February, but it seems again the UFC has decided to abandon their plans and go back on their word. Diaz also commented on the situation where he said that Dustin sucks, but he hopes to fight him ASAP, and he had his usual trash talk remarks where he states that Charles Oliveira sucks too. Poirier is coming off a 3rd round submission against Oliveira, as stated earlier in his bid to become the undisputed champion. Both champs were ready and on board in regards to getting prepared for the match, and it seems both of them are frustrated at the fact that the UFC pulled the plug on the fight. It's highly unlikely that the UFC is just trying to build hype for the fight by frustrating the crowd and then replugging the fight later in the year when both Poirier and Nate Diaz are at the top of their game. It'll indeed be a glorious match, as the best fighters in the division will fight in the welterweight category to end their online beef and then trash talk once and for all by setting it aside in the octagon. We're not sure who would come out victorious, but it'll be a fight worth witnessing all the same. That's all for today's video. Tune in next time for more UFC news. Till then, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future videos, and we'll see you next time. Take care and goodbye.